He thought my login was a key to brilliance. He didn't know I'd already changed the locks. Tomorrow, in front of our biggest client, he'll present what he believes is genius strategy. What he doesn't know is that every slide, every chart, every number will collapse under the first real question. And I'll be right there, in the front row, watching his world implode. My name is Emma Clark. I'm 34 years old, senior data strategist at one of the largest consulting firms in New York. For 7 years, I've been the quiet architect behind projects that brought millions to the company. My colleagues call me reliable. My performance reviews praise my attention to detail. But the same line appears every year. Emma needs to work on her executive presence. That's corporate code for, she does the work, but we can't picture her leading. I know what invisibility feels like. I've watched junior analysts present my models to the board. I've seen managers repackage my insights with their name on the slide deck. I've stayed in the office past midnight fixing disasters no one else could solve, only to watch someone else smile for the credit. The truth is, I learned long ago, when you're invisible, you see everything. That's how I saw him. Liam Foster, 28 years old, business school graduate, expensive suit, expensive watch, and the arrogant calm of someone who has never been told no. He had one qualification that outshined all others. He was the CEO's only son. And in a firm like ours, that was more powerful than a PhD, more valuable than a decade of experience. When Liam joined, it wasn't through HR. It was at a Monday morning meeting when our CEO announced him with pride. My son will be taking a leadership role in our most critical accounts. He represents the future of the company. The future. That word stung, because I knew what it meant. The future was Liam in the spotlight, and me in the shadows, quietly making sure his spotlight didn't collapse. Our biggest client this year was Crestmont Industries, a $50 million engagement to rebuild their retail data infrastructure. The kind of project that defines careers, the kind of client you cannot afford to lose. Naturally, I expected to be buried in the back end as usual, doing the heavy lifting while Liam smiled for the cameras. And I was right. From his first day, Liam was a hurricane. He didn't ask. He demanded, "Emma, send me the quarterly churn analysis. Emma, I need the revenue projections by noon." "No, please, no thank you. Just assumption." And when he forwarded my reports, my name vanished. His signature appeared at the bottom. At first, I bit my tongue. I'd played this game before. But then he crossed a line. It was a Thursday afternoon, nearly 5 p.m., when Liam walked into my office without knocking. He leaned against the doorframe like he owned the place. "I need your login credentials for the Crestmont folder," he said. Not asked. Said. I paused. "Those are my working files, Liam. They're not ready for client use." He waved a hand as if brushing away a fly. "I just need some visuals for a deck I'm pulling together. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Send me the password." And just like that, he left. Expensive cologne lingering in the air. I sat there staring at my screen, 7 years of being overlooked flooding my chest. How many times had I been told I wasn't leadership material, while watching leaders like Liam, who couldn't explain a single formula, take credit for my work? Something inside me shifted that day. Not rage. Rage burns too quickly. This was colder, sharper. Calculation. I opened a new folder. Crestmont Final, EC. My initials at the end, subtle enough to be ignored. Inside, I began crafting a different kind of deliverable. Not lies. No, that would be too obvious. Instead, I built analyses that looked flawless at a glance, but were catastrophically wrong under scrutiny. A retention model with inverted formulas. A revenue projection based on outdated exchange rates. A segmentation strategy pulled from demographics. Crestmont hadn't targeted in a decade. Beautiful to the eye. Fatal in reality. Then I saved the real versions, clean, correct, airtight, into a separate, secured folder, complete with documentation trails and timestamps. If Liam wanted my login, I'd give it. And I'd give him exactly what he deserved. When the email arrived, "Send me your credentials ASAP." My reply was short. Here you go. The files you need are in Crestmont Final. E.C. Send. The trap was set. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched Liam present my poisoned files in internal meetings, bragging about the insights he'd developed. His voice steady, his smile unwavering. I stayed quiet, nodding in support, documenting every misstep. Each claim he made bound him tighter to the lies. Each compliment he received from executives made his eventual fall heavier. Tomorrow, he will walk into Cressman's boardroom wearing his $3,000 suit and his father's confidence. He will project my corrupted files on a screen worth more than my car. And he will promise the impossible. And me? I'll be sitting in the front row, my leather folder on my lap, containing every real analysis, every timestamp, every piece of evidence. Waiting. The beauty of a trap is that the victim springs it themselves. The morning after I handed over my login, the entire office seemed to orbit around Liam. He walked through the halls like he was born to own them. Handshakes, easy smiles, the kind of polished confidence that money buys and upbringing reinforces. People leaned in when he spoke, laughed at jokes that weren't funny, nodded at insights that weren't his. I watched from the sidelines, unnoticed as always. That was my gift, really. Being invisible means you can study people in ways they can't study you. And what I saw in Liam was not brilliance, but bravado. He knew the language of leadership, big words, polished gestures, but not the substance beneath. The first test came a week later in a team meeting. Liam presented my retention model, one of the poisoned files I'd planted. On the screen, charts glowed in corporate blues and greens, arrows pointing upward. He cleared his throat, voice carrying with authority. Our analysis shows a dramatic shift in customer behavior. Retention rates appear far lower than expected, meaning Crestmont has urgent opportunities to re-engage their premium clients. I almost smiled. That single sentence contained a time bomb. Across the table, Sarah from Analytics frowned. Are you sure about that? I thought retention had been improving, not dropping. Liam gave her a smile that could have been rehearsed in a mirror. Sometimes data forces us to challenge our assumptions. That's why Crestmont hired us, to bring in fresh perspectives. The room nodded. No one pushed further. Not yet. But I logged the moment. 10:42 a.m., Thursday, January 12th. Screenshot saved. Each day, Liam pulled deeper from the poisoned well. He forwarded client emails my way with a one-line instruction. Handle this. He stripped my name from models, slapped his initials on presentations, and passed them off as original thought. He was building a tower of lies, brick by brick, and he never noticed the foundation was already cracking. Still, I wasn't reckless. I built my insurance carefully. The real models sat in my secured folders, version histories intact. Every dummy file bore my digital fingerprints. Creation dates, embedded initials, metadata tags that couldn't be erased without leaving evidence. Each time Liam accessed my fake folders, my little script logged the event: date, time, IP address. He was unknowingly writing his own confession with every keystroke. 2 weeks before the client presentation, I overheard him in the break room boasting to 2 junior analysts. Honestly, this project is a breeze. I've already developed new models that will blow Crestmont's executives away. They've never seen analysis this sharp. The juniors nodded eagerly, hungry to be in his orbit. I poured my coffee in silence, invisible as usual. But inside, I was ice. Let him brag. The louder the boast, the harder the fall. The truth was, Crestmont's executives weren't fools. Margaret Hale, their CFO, was known for shredding consultants who showed up unprepared. I'd seen her in action once. Calm, polite, but deadly precise. She spotted an error in a competitor's projection in under 2 minutes and spent the rest of the meeting peeling back their assumptions until nothing was left. And that was the beauty of my trap. All it would take was one sharp question, one moment of scrutiny, and Liam's masterpiece would collapse into nonsense. He'd claim 40% growth in the dead of winter, recommend stocking summer apparel in December, argue that retirees were the prime demographic for a brand built on Gen Z trends. Impossible claims, fatal mistakes. But I wasn't naive. I knew Liam wasn't just some arrogant rookie. He was the CEO's son. Even when he failed, there would be an instinct to protect him. That's why my evidence needed to be bulletproof. Not whispers, not suspicions, but facts. Timestamps, logs, screenshots. A chain of proof so irrefutable that even family ties couldn't deny it. One late evening, as I organized my documentation, Marcus, the CEO and Liam's father, passed by my office. He paused at the door, surprised to see me still there. "Working late again, Emma?" I forced a polite smile. "Just making sure the Crestmont data is clean." He nodded approvingly. "That's why I trust you with the details. Not everyone has your discipline." Then he walked away, never guessing that his own son's fate was sealed in the very files glowing on my screen. By the third week, the tension in the office was tangible. Liam strutted with more confidence than ever, telling anyone who'd listen that Crestmont would double their investment once they saw his insights. Meanwhile, Sarah whispered to me privately, "Some of those numbers look strange. Are you sure they're right?" I gave her the same calm smile I gave everyone. "Trust the process. Everything will make sense soon." Inside, my anticipation grew. For 7 years, I had been the ghost in the machine, the woman no one remembered in promotions, the name left off the slides. But in 4 days, in a glass conference room overlooking the city, I would finally step into the light. And Liam? He would discover what happens when you try to steal from someone invisible. Because invisibility, I'd learned, isn't weakness. It's a weapon. The Friday before the Crestmont presentation, I arrived earlier than usual. The office was quiet, just the hum of servers and the faint whir of the cleaning staff's vacuum on another floor. I liked it that way. Silence gave me clarity. I poured myself coffee and opened the secured folder on my laptop. The real analysis glowed on my screen. Clean models, logical forecasts, projections grounded in reality. 8% growth in Q3, 5% in Q4. Manageable challenges, real opportunities, the kind of work that could stand up to scrutiny anywhere. Then, with one click, I opened the other folder. The poisoned one. Charts with inverted formulas, projections in the wrong currency, demographic targeting pulled from outdated years. Beautiful to the untrained eye, catastrophic to anyone who actually understood Crestmont's business. And those were the files Liam had been parading as his own brilliance for the past month. My little script confirmed it again. 27 separate logins from Liam, each download neatly logged. He'd even renamed the files, stripping away my initials, stamping his into the headers. The arrogance was breathtaking. That morning, HR sent out an internal email. Reminder, Crestmont presentation Monday at 9 a.m. Sharp, dress code, business formal. All hands and support roles should be prepared. In support roles. That's what I'd been for 7 years. The person in the corner, silent, fixing disasters while others got applause. But Monday would be different. Monday, I wouldn't just be in support. I spent most of the day preparing my portfolio. Every chart, every real model printed and bound in a leather folder. Timestamps, metadata, screenshots of Slack messages, even version histories. Not dramatic accusations, just facts laid out clearly, step by step. My insurance policy. By mid-afternoon, Liam strutted into my office without knocking. He leaned against the doorframe, grinning like a politician. "Big day Monday. You'll be there, right? In case they throw technical questions." His tone wasn't a request, it was an order. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied evenly. "Good." He straightened his tie and flashed that practice smile. "Not that I'll need backup. The work speaks for itself." I almost laughed. Yes, it did. That weekend, I tried to relax, but the anticipation gnawed at me. I walked around the city, sat in cafes, pretended to read. But my mind kept circling back to Crestmont's boardroom, to the moment when impossible numbers would be projected on a 12-foot screen. Sunday night, my phone buzzed with an unexpected email from Marcus, our CEO. Emma, please bring supporting documentation to tomorrow's meeting. Liam mentioned you've been keeping the technical backups. I stared at the message for a long time. Of course. Liam was already building his escape route. If things went south, he'd try to redirect blame. Say I'd given him faulty numbers or claim I'd failed to clarify. He thought he was clever, lining up a scapegoat. But scapegoats don't usually carry portfolios of evidence. I typed my reply. Of course. I'll bring everything. That night, I laid out my charcoal suit, polished my shoes, and placed the portfolio by the door. Inside, 2 stories waited. One false, one true. By 9 a.m. tomorrow, only one would survive. Monday morning, the lobby was buzzing. Consultants in sharp suits clustered in small groups, rehearsing sound bites, double-checking slides. Liam arrived like he owned the building. Expensive suit, perfect hair, that easy grin. People flocked to him, eager to be in his orbit. I walked past unnoticed, my leather folder under my arm. That was fine. Being invisible had always been my strength. We rode the elevator together to the top floor. Liam chatted with another manager about reshaping retail landscapes and innovative growth levers. Buzzwords polished to perfection. I stayed silent, focused on the floor numbers ticking upward. The Crestmont boardroom was everything I expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline, a table that could seat 20, screens larger than my living room wall. One by one, executives filed in. Margaret Hale, the CFO, with her sharp eyes and sharper questions. James Donovan, the CEO, calm and composed, the kind of leader who'd built an empire from nothing. Marcus and 2 other partners took seats along the wall. Liam sat up at the front, clicking through his slides, confident, radiant. I chose my spot deliberately. Front row, directly across from Margaret Hale. I placed my folder on the table, closed but within reach. As Liam opened the meeting with his polished introduction, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The pieces were in place. The trap was ready. All I had to do now was wait. Liam opened with confidence so polished it almost squeaked. Company overview, market trends, slides that said everything and nothing. The room eased into a rhythm. Heads nodding, pens tapping, the ritual of corporate theater. Then he advanced to the first critical slide. Revenue projections. A neat line shot up in Q4 like a rocket. 40+% growth. In December, in the Northeast. Across from me, Margaret Hale lifted her eyes from the screen to Liam, then back again. Can you walk me through the assumptions behind that Q4 acceleration? Her tone was neutral, precise. Liam didn't miss a beat. We've identified underpenetrated winter segments. With targeted promotions and optimized inventory mix, we believe Crestmont can unlock outsized seasonal demand. Optimized? How? Margaret asked. No edge, just the knife laid flat on the table. We'll shift assortment to align with the new segments, Liam said. Increase heat in categories with the highest elasticity. It sounded like English. It wasn't saying anything. James Donovan, Crestmont's CEO, leaned forward. James, he said, we have 32 winters of data. We've never beaten Q3 in Q4, not once. Liam clicked again to segmentation. A tidy cluster plot labeled primary growth 55 to 70. Retirees is the engine of a brand built on athleisure and downtown pop-ups. Margaret's eyebrow lifted. You're suggesting our growth is driven by retirees? Emerging opportunity, Liam said. A neglected cohort with high lifetime value. Margaret glanced at her tablet, then back at the slide. Our revenue is 76% 25 to 34. That's not a belief. That's our internal data for the last 3 years. A thinning silence settled. Pens stopped tapping. Liam's smile strained but held. Sometimes internal views lag the market. We're challenging assumptions. He advanced to inventory optimization. A colorful calendar grid pulsed on the screen. The caption, Winter Mix Shift, Outerwear/Resort. It took 2 seconds for the room temperature to drop. James folded his hands. Are you advising we cut outerwear in December and expand resort? Based on projected footfall from travel-adjacent locations, yes, Liam said. Underexploited adjacency. Margaret didn't look up. Projected from which locations? Composite of Midwest and Northeast stores. Then why is the seasonal coefficient tagged Sunbelt 14? She asked, still reading. Because that's a Sunbelt coefficient. A ripple passed around the table. Even Liam's confidence flickered. That's a label artifact. The math is sound. Margaret lifted her gaze. Is it? She tapped her screen. Because your Q4 revenue sheet references FXUSDAUD at 0.74 in the conversion helper. We're a US retailer. Why are you converting Australian dollars? Liam blinked. We standardized currency to maintain... To maintain what? James asked, mild as snow. We sell coats in Chicago, not cairns. Someone near the end of the table coughed, the kind of cough that tries to bury a laugh. Liam's hand tightened on the clicker. He moved to churn. My inverted formula gleamed in corporate blue. Premium retention at 18%. Industry devastating. Margaret didn't even ask. Our last monthly cohort shows 82% retention for premium. This says 18. You're off by a factor of 4.5. New cohort definition, Liam said. We're using a stricter window to expose the leak. It's inverted, Margaret answered. Your denominator is wrong. A G 247 points to loss, labeled as keep her eyes flicked up, steady. Who built this? Team effort, Liam said smoothly. I led methodology. My folder felt suddenly heavy in my lap. I didn't move. I didn't need to. The room was doing the work. Mr. Foster, James said, voice soft enough to make everyone lean in. Do you understand our business? Silence. Liam opened his mouth, then closed it again. His father, Marcus, shifted on his chair along the wall, face unreadable. James looked past Liam, to me. Emma, is there anything you want to add? Every head turned. The old reflex, to minimize, to stay small, flashed and died. I set my folder on the table, stood, and held up an HDMI cable. May I? I asked. James nodded. Liam stepped aside, stiff as a mannequin. I connected my laptop. The screen changed. Gone were the impossible spikes. In their place, a modest 8% in Q3, tapering to 5 in Q4, with confidence intervals and notes that matched Crestmont's reality. This projection accounts for 32 winters of historicals, I said. My voice surprised me. Calm, even. Footfall declines 59 to 63% after October across your Midwest locations. Any model showing Q4 outpacing Q3 is misspecified or mixing geographies. Margaret was already nodding. That aligns with our view. I clicked to segmentation. Primary revenue is 25 to 34, 76% last year, rising to 78 this quarter. The earlier analysis used 2014 segmentation logic. Crestmont repositioned in 2019, I advanced to inventory. Outerwear is correctly weighted for December through February. The resort lift in the other deck came from Sunbelt coefficients mistakenly applied to Midwest stores. A label artifact would not redirect a formula. The range reference was wrong. No one interrupted. The room felt closer now, as if the table had quietly tightened around the truth. I moved to retention. Premium retention is 82%. The other file inverted the calculation. AG 247 points to the loss flag. Here's the corrected sheet, with audit trail. Margaret's pen hovered, then dropped. Thank you. I stopped. I hadn't mentioned Liam. I hadn't needed to. The numbers were their own witness. James tapped his finger once on the table. One question, he said to me. How did we get shown that? He angled his head toward the frozen image of Liam's slide. Instead of this? I opened the folder. Pages lay in crisp order: version histories, timestamps, access logs. "These are the preliminary drafts I keep for internal stress testing," I said. "Marked not for distribution. They were accessed, renamed, and presented as final." I slid one page forward. "You'll see the metadata change on the distributed deck. The label preliminary was removed." Liam spoke quickly, too quickly. "Emma supplied the wrong numbers. I asked for the final file and she—" "The access log shows 43 downloads from my prelim directory in 4 weeks," I said, keeping my voice level. "Each occurred after I flagged the final versions in our secured path." I didn't look at him. I looked at James. "The client deserves accurate work. This," I tapped my screen, "is accurate." Silence again, the decisive kind. James stood. "We'll take 10 minutes," he said. "Emma, please stay. Everyone else, give us the room." Chairs slid, paper rustled. Liam didn't move at first. Then he did, jaw set, eyes everywhere but mine. Marcus followed him out, a fraction too slowly. The door closed. The room felt larger. Margaret exhaled. "Emma," she said quietly, "can you deliver the analysis you just showed us under our timeline?" "Yes," I said, "with authority to choose the team. Direct access to your data. Clear sign-off protocols." James nodded once. "Good." Outside the glass, I could see Liam on the phone, pacing, one hand to his temple. For years, I'd been invisible in rooms like this. Now the room was looking back at me. The 10 minutes hadn't passed yet. But the tide had. The 10 minutes stretched into 7. The door opened. James and Margaret returned first, faces composed. Marcus came in behind them, the careful neutrality of a man balancing 2 loyalties. Liam followed last, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the middle distance. James resumed his seat and folded his hands. "Thank you for your patience," he said. "We're continuing with the engagement under one condition. Emma leads it. Effective now." He turned to me. "Authority to pick the team, direct access to our data, and a weekly checkpoint with me and Margaret. Can you accept that?" "Yes," I said. "I'll need a clean handoff today and a working session with your finance and operations leads by Wednesday." "Done," Margaret said. Liam cleared his throat. "With respect, this change midstream will confuse the client. The original methodology—" James didn't raise his voice. "Mr. Foster, you won't be speaking for us going forward." He looked to Marcus. "I assume your firm will manage its internal process." Marcus's nod was small, controlled. "We will." The rest of the meeting was all pragmatism. Dates, deliverables, data access. I walked them through the corrected roadmap. Rebuild the churn model with transparent cohort logic, fix the geography mix in the footfall forecasts, retune inventory coefficients by climate band, establish a sign-off gate so preliminary files could never masquerade as final. No buzzwords, no theater, just work. When we broke, Margaret lingered. "I don't reward drama," she said quietly. "I reward clarity. Bring me clean numbers and people who can explain them." "You'll have both," I said. In the hallway, Marcus stopped me. Up close, he looked older than he had an hour ago. "Did you plan this?" he asked. "I plan to protect the client and my work," I said. The files Liam used were marked preliminary. I documented everything because I've learned that's the only way to be heard. He studied me a beat, then exhaled. "We'll need a formal statement for our internal review. You'll have it by end of day." Back at the office, HR called me into a glass room and turned on the recorder. I stuck to facts: dates, folders, version histories. No adjectives, no speculating about intent. When they asked if I wanted to file a complaint, I said this: "My only request is process. Clear ownership, audit trails, and consequences when those are ignored." They nodded and ended the recording. Liam didn't come back to the floor that afternoon. An email later announced he was on leave. No details. Offices are good at euphemisms. I assembled my team before the day was out. Sarah from analytics, because she asked the right questions. Daniel from ops, because he knew the store systems better than anyone. And Priya, a junior who'd been quietly fixing other people's SQL for a year. In our first stand-up, I laid out ground rules. Everything in version control, every assumption documented, no slides without model notes, no one presents alone. Heads nodded, relief visible. We opened the Crestmont repo and started over. The next weeks were a blur of clean work. Daily syncs with Crestmont's finance and ops. A cohort retention model that anyone could audit in 5 minutes. A seasonality framework that separated climate from calendar. A modest forecast, 6 to 8% growth in Q3, 4 to 5% in Q4, tied to levers Crestmont actually controlled. We piloted a staffing optimization at 6 stores and watched checkout times drop without overtime. When we recommended shifting outerwear buy windows by 2 weeks in the Midwest, the warehouses stopped choking in January. We didn't promise miracles. We delivered improvements. By quarter close, the numbers came in. Crestmont landed at 6.8% growth in Q3, 4.9% in Q4, within the band we'd projected. Inventory carry cost fell by $1.8 million over 2 months. Margaret sent a 3-sentence note to our firm. Thank you for the transparency. Thank you for the rigor. Keep going. I printed it and slid it into my folder behind the access logs. Both mattered. The internal part resolved quieter. Liam resigned. To pursue new opportunities. The announcement was 3 lines long. Weeks later, he sent me an email that started with defensiveness and ended with apology. I read it twice, then archived it. I wasn't interested in being his lesson. I was interested in not repeating mine. Marcus called me into his office on a rainy Tuesday. No small talk. You're leading Crestmont permanently, he said. And I want you to build a data integrity program across accounts. Title upgrade, budget, headcount. Present a plan next week. I'll do it if the rules are explicit, I said. Ownership, review gates, and real consequences when they're ignored. Otherwise, we're just changing titles. He smiled, tired but genuine. Write the rules, Emma. I walked back to my desk past the kombucha taps and the aspirational posters and thought about how quiet fights change companies. Not speeches, not takedowns. Process. Proof. People who will do the work when the stage lights are off. I didn't set out to ruin someone. I set out to protect a client and reclaim my name. The trap only existed because someone kept helping themselves to what wasn't theirs. If there's a message in any of this, it's not be ruthless. It's simpler. Document everything. Guard your work and let the truth do the heavy lifting. Competence doesn't shout. It accumulates. I still stay late sometimes. The office hums the way it did before dawn on that Friday when I checked both folders and chose which story would survive Monday. Only now, when I leave, I stop by a different office. Mine, with a door and a window and a team chart taped to the wall. Before I shut down for the night, I write 1 line at the top of the next brief. Assumptions we can defend. It's not flashy. It holds.